Yeah, we're not doing an intro, long intro anymore. We're going straight to the good stuff. Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and with us again today is Hans-Georg Möller. Hans-Georg Möller, how are you? Hans, have you your mic muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Talk,
Yes.
you sound good. Now, Hans was here before, but he was gracious enough to come back and talk about his book, You and Your Profile, Identity After Authenticity. And he wrote this book with Paul J. D'Ambrosio. It's right here all over the floor. Um, and let me just say, if for the colorful avatars in the audience today, I hope you're not disappointed. This book is not a crash course how to fill out your Second Life profile or to present a profile on any algorithmic social media platform for you to get clicks. This is a deeply philosophical talk with Georg. Now, Georg, what is the book about?
The book is about what I call identity technologies. That's the basic idea that we use certain social and psychological ways of shaping or forming a sense of self. And there's the idea that there are different kind of technologies to do this. The first one, Paul and I call sincerity. That is in traditional societies, but still many times, also many places today. Sincerity means sincere commitment to roles. Like again, the core example would be family roles, right? That you commit to being whatever. In China, this is very important, to being a child of your parents, and you form a strong sense of self through these roles that you have in the family, and then you grow up and you get more roles and your roles become complicated. You're more complicated. You're at the same time a child, but you are also a sibling, and then you become a parent and so forth. So, and you develop a sense of self very much in orientation and through enacting these roles.
And
And you
these roles,
behave
sorry
in
to jump in here, they,
accordance.
they are somehow, I mean, the examples that you're using,
What's
these
that?
these are predestined roles pretty much for the most part.
These roles are very much roles that are basically prescribed by society, right?
Hmm.
So there are certain expectations for how a parent behaves, how a child behaves, and so forth. So you fulfill the social expectations regarding these roles. And thereby you develop a sense of self. You develop, if people ask you who you are in traditional societies, you would say, I'm whatever, I'm the son of so and so, I'm the father of so and so
Hmm.
forth. So you identify yourself with in relation to and through these roles.
And the second mode or the second technology is authenticity. And last time you were here, what I learned, I mean, I learned a lot, but one thing that I learned is that I used the term authenticity uh, probably wrongly. So please define what this mode would be or technology.
Yes, then this happens basically between the 16th and the 18th century, that this, what we call sincerity, this mode of this technology of shaping a sense of self, becomes increasingly questioned and is replaced by what some people also call individualism. So the idea is now that you have to somehow find your true self. And this commitment, this sincere commitment to roles, is perceived as being as conformism, and that's not it's no longer a good thing. It means that again, you're just fulfilling the expectations of society, but you're not true to yourself. So the idea is that you can basically that this is not a sufficient sense of self. You have to find the true self and then express it.
Right.
A
So,
good
for
example
example, I'm
would
sorry to
have
jump in here. As you know, Georg, I'm the worst host in the universe, but I got to jump in.
yes,
So, before you use your example, I have a perfect example. So, I'm the son of my father, who is a civil engineer in Munich, Germany. But I'm also now, under authenticity, a uh, famous internet celebrity. Is that the correct use?
no,
No?
it's not a good example.
Okay.
Because then we're already in profilicity.
Aha. Okay.
Yes. So the idea, for instance, is again like how are you a good person in sincerity, right? You commit to your role. So, for instance, in you also you listen to what your parents say. You fulfill the role expectations, and then with modernity, you have this idea that you have to you do your own thing. Um, and like we have the famous Romeo and Juliet story, right? Where the children do not conform to the role expectations. They follow their own heart, right?
Hmm.
So that is also a shift, like romantic love. This is the time of romanticism. Romanticism is very closely tied to the emergence of authenticity. So that also means you have a different relation to people, right? Uh, in sincerity, you basically have what I like to call role mates, right? So you develop both your sense of self and who others are through these roles, right? So again, you're a father to your children, you're a daughter to your parents, and so forth. So you see each other as role mates. But again, in sincerity, in authenticity, that is not really good anymore. There you have to find your soulmate, right? You have to find the other authentic self, and you have to build a relationship to the other person based on their unique originality. And you don't care about their social status and about social expectations and so forth. It's just about the individual to individual relationship that then counts. So you also have this switch from role mates to soulmates when you shift from sincerity to authenticity. And again, everything changes then, the literature changes, right? Before that, you had these
Real
kind
quick,
of role models.
but
Okay?
Georg, real quick, just to make clear, these two modes,
Yes.
you're explaining them as if they follow each other,
Yes, they
in
do
time,
follow
right?
each other.
Hmm.
They do, because authenticity results from a rebellion against sincerity,
Hmm.
as I just explained, and I gave the Romeo and Juliet example. As I said many times, the roles seem now as bad conformity,
Hmm.
right? So they are rejected. There is a protest against this conformity. The authentic person kind of finds their authenticity through a rejection of adherence and commitment to the traditional roles. A very important part of becoming authentic is to reject social role expectations.
Right,
Again, that's why I mentioned Romeo and Juliet as an example.
right. And you,
They
Can
wouldn't
can
be
I?
Romeo and Juliet if they wouldn't protest against the role expectations by society and particularly by their parents.
right. Or,
So I
mhm.
just I
Go
just
ahead,
want
Shiva.
to clarify real quick because I in my family we used a term called coming into oneself, meaning
Right,
that you kind of find your own. So is that kind
right.
of what we're talking about?
Yes, that is a typical expression from the age of authenticity. So this changes then. You wouldn't really have this expression before the age of authenticity. Right? So that this kind of thinking that is expressed in this expression, that is authenticity thinking.
And as we talked about last time, which is fascinating, and you write about this in the book too, and I think it's pretty clear in how you describe it. I mean, my immediate thought was, oh my God, the age of authenticity can be incredibly stressful because it
Of
seems there
course.
is no. I mean, you have to basically uh, you have to play this game. You can't just opt out
Yes,
of it.
and it's very stressful. It's stressful, like for teenagers, because you have to be unique. You have to be different from everyone else. Otherwise, you're not authentic enough, right? So it is very stressful to be authentic, to be original, to be unique.
Now, and a little bit later, maybe we'll touch on new sincerity. But in essence, like you say, this is a sequence of modes and technologies, and you are
Yes.
now suggesting.
Let me
Go ahead.
let me interrupt you this
Yeah,
time, Drax. Okay.
always.
It also has to do with the rise of the changes in society. That society becomes much more dynamic, right? People have to leave their families. We have a modern economy that is slowly emerging, right? So. People are the world becomes much more dynamic, and you just can't stay in your role all the time. So it has a lot to do with the modernization of society and the switch to capitalism. We also have the switch in religion in Europe, the switch from Catholicism to Protestantism. That you have to find your kind of authentic way of being religious individually rather than mediated through the Catholic Church. So we have this kind of shift to authenticity also in these other social sectors, right? As I said, the economy, you have to, make your own career on your own, right? That's also this kind of American ideal, right? You shouldn't just, get rich by inheriting from your parents.
Right.
That's not okay, right? And
Right, like in my example, like just sitting there and getting all the cash from my civil engineer dad. No, I went out there and I became a virtual celebrity.
again, and that is
A
all
great
the
example.
self-made man, right? That's all. That's all the shift. Like before, that was okay. You were born as an aristocrat. You had blue blood, and that was your role, and you had to fulfill it. And that was the expectations. And if you didn't live up to that role, that was bad, right? But there was no problem in you in being born rich. Some people are born rich and then have to live up to this role. So we see this shift from sincerity to authenticity in all these social levels, like as I just said, very importantly, economy and religion, right? And that is also in Protestantism, whatever, right? You have to find your way through yourself rather than through the priest. That's why people have, this in America that's still very big, this, born again. That's what the Protestant, you have to find your faith not when you're born, like in Catholicism, but when you're grown up by yourself. You have to find individually your way to religion. And so religion too becomes authentic. And then again, this kind of through this kind of shift from society to this individualist mode, the whole kind of technology of building your sense of self shifts. So if you're born rich and you're just like, lazy and so forth, in this society, as you just said, they look down upon you. They don't look at you as kind of authentically rich, right? It's not rewarded. Right. And so it's a new kind of having an idea where kind of personality and selfhood and the word we're using, and I think it's a good word, identity comes from.
Right. And I want to read this comment by Backbro. He said it's finding identity is difficult for cats too. They have to deal with authenticity. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna read every comment today. But we do have a cat in the audience, so that's why I wanted to read this comment. Shyla?
I was going to ask about the authenticity, so I'm thinking about this, and it is coming into oneself, but I feel like today we're in a society where you do that repeatedly through your life. Like, is this a one-time stage, or is this something
that's
where
what
you
we're
have
getting
to
at.
reinvent yourself?
Right.
No, let her talk. Let her talk, Doug.
I don't
Okay,
let people
go on.
talk.
Well, I think like in my life, I started out agriculturally. I went into the corporate arena, and now I'm in the arts. And I've kind of reinvented myself. Did I go through kind of finding myself authenticity each time?
Yes, you can definitely also describe this journey as your own personal journey of finding yourself and recreating yourself again and again. That is also that is kind of a slightly paradoxical thing. authenticity is always about finding yourself and creating yourself. And that's a little bit contradictory, right? But that's typical, these two elements together. And so it's also very typical that you describe a life, your life as a kind of a lifelong journey of developing your authenticity in these two ways simultaneously, by finding yourself more truly and creating yourself more creatively.
Now we're getting to, which I already put in here. Now I'm going to put the slide up here with the term prophilicity, which you offer in your book. And when Shaila was talking, I was thinking, aha, is Shaila not already talking about what you describe as prophilicity?
No, she's not.
Then what is prophilicity?
So, if you're going back to the shift from sincerity to authenticity, right? In authenticity, the idea is basically kind of a shift of the of perspective. In sincerity, the outside persona is important, the role, right? You dress in accordance with the role and everything. But again, like in authenticity, you basically look inwards. You think you must find your true self, or you create your true self and then somehow express it later. So there is a kind of a shift of perspective. And when we move from, which I think now what's happening in society, if we move from authenticity to prophilicity, we're again looking very much at the outward, what is presented in society. That's the profile. That's like a brand, if you want. So that really becomes important. And that is where you kind of orient yourself towards. You create a profile, and then you look how this profile is being validated. So you build your sense of who you are by basically looking at your profile, and then looking at how your profile is being validated in society. That is similar to sincerity, where you looked at how much others were appreciating that you were fulfilling your role, right? You're a good mother and you're a good wife if your kind of children and your husband give you that feedback, and in the village the other people, and they say, okay, this is like a really good wife, or this is like a really good husband, and thereby you build a reputation. And that's where you build, let's say, self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And in prophilicity, again, we have this kind of outward profile where which is what needs to be validated, where we build kind of self-confidence if it's positively validated. So it's again this orientation to the external, let's say, presentation of the self, right? Whereas in authenticity, you always have to look for your internally, that you have to check if you are originally, if you really found your true self. What was the expression that you used earlier? You were asking about. Sorry.
Who, me?
No.
Oh, coming into one's own?
Exactly, come into your one's own. So the direction is you're looking for your own, right? You have to. Mm-hmm. That's where that's kind of the mode, the technology. So you have to find what is your own in order to come into it. But in the profile and the role are external, and so you have to look at how is your role performance perceived, or how is your profile, how much validity does your profile have? So that's a very different kind of orientation than coming into your own, where you look kind of inwards and you're kind of exploring yourself, and you build a sense of identity by feeling, so to speak, at home in yourself. You somehow feel you found your true self, right? So that's a very different kind of psychological and also social expectation that you have towards others, because you expect the same thing from others, right? You're looking for soulmates, as I said earlier. You also look for in other people that they came into their own, and then you respect them. You respect them because you think they are authentic. They managed to come into their own, and if not, then you think they're inauthentic, right?
This is fascinating. I completely understand what you're saying. I want to ask people in the room if they feel that their avatar expression that they have right now. I mean, we have a small crowd here, very diverse in their avatar expression. If their avatar expression is their true self that they're expressing, or if they seek uh, validation in a social feedback loop, or if it's a combination for them. I would like to hear a little bit of these personal journeys. And also right now I'm putting the camera around here because in the venue where we are, there's a whole bunch of screenshots on the side of former book club guests, all in their different avatar presentation. And a lot of these people, Georg, are, I think most of them are really tied to their avatar. They craft the avatar, and for the most part, they don't change it. I mean, I might,
Right.
I don't want to
And
speak
then
for
can I say
everybody.
something? Can I
Yeah,
interrupt you?
please go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting you all the time. What is very important for me to say, so to avoid misunderstandings, that I don't think authenticity is better than any of the other two identity technologies. So, because that's initially often a misunderstanding, I don't think that authenticity is better than sincerity or better than prophilicity. I think they're all equally valid because they all fit into a certain society and fit into their times. And so I criticize my own earlier search for authenticity in a sense. I think that the times have moved on to prophilicity, so I don't think there is anything wrong with being prophilic. But unfortunately, we still have a prejudice against prophilicity because we're still having this vocabulary, still we having the concepts, we have the values of authenticity, even though actually in real life or in second life, we actually moved on to being prophilic. But we're kind of hesitant to admit it. We still kind of value the authenticity vocabulary and to describe ourselves, even though it's not really the way we live.
hmm Um, I mean, I agree with you with 99.9% of what you put forward in the book. The one thing that I'm not so sure about is that the method or mode or technology of prophilicity applies in every situation, I guess,
No, it doesn't.
right?
No, it totally
Yeah.
does. You're right. I agree. We have agreement on that as well, Drax.
Okay, now it's
We are
100%. We're at 100% now.
yes. It's like with other technologies, right? We use mostly digital technologies, but sometimes we still use a hammer to nail, for a nail sometimes. Right? So, and that's the same thing. I mean, we've moved on to the more like kind of advanced, if you want, identity technologies doesn't mean that we've kind of uh, um, completely abandoned the others. We still use sincerity and authenticity.
I want to read a few comments here because also the reason why I wanted to know from the crowd here, and let me look if on YouTube somebody is commenting. No, only in World, is that the expression here is not governed by an algorithm that is rewarding us when in Second Life is rewarding us to look a certain way or to behave a certain way, so that those gamification aspects are not present here, and I'm not sure if that leads to people being less concerned about how they are being perceived by others in or observed. Um, let's see here. Who is Faison says, yes, I think that prophilicity can sometimes be damaging because people create a profile based on what they believe society will accept, and then post or create a real life image attached to that profile when really that is not truly their authentic self, so causing almost a cognitive dissonance of self. I mean, these are the incentives of social media, no doubt. I think that they are. I have to agree that they're damaging. Moon says Moon is more or less shaped into a mirror to myself. Moon is talking about her avatar. She's quite similar looking. Gap says, is the strong focus on LGBTQ and other identities an example of prophylicity that masks?
Yes, I'm just writing a book on this.
Okay, you want to pick up that last point here?
Maybe
Or we'll wait for your
I
next
want.
book.
There are lots of points.
Shiloh will
want
have
to
you
maybe
come right afterwards. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk about the one with the author who talked about that profiles are somehow bad because we are inauthentic in our profiles. Some comment something like this. There was one comment saying
Well, I
something
think
like that.
it's, yeah, she says, I think Face is suggesting that I immediately have to think
Can
of
you read it
Facebook.
again? Sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting. Can you interrupt?
Face says that
yeah.
prophylicity can sometimes be damaging because people create a profile based on what they believe society will accept and then post or create a real life image attached to that profile when really that is not truly their authentic self, causing almost a
Right.
cognitive dissonance. And I think Faye is referring to the real life tab in the Second Life profile. But to me, I immediately thought of Facebook. Facebook has really started. I mean, I think Facebook started and still to this day is maybe not leading, but it set the tone in sort of presenting ourselves in a certain way, right? In like the best possible light all the time.
Yes, and of course, the point she's making, I understand that, and I think I agree with what she means, 100%. But I would be careful about, or I don't agree with the wording. And I think, as you said at the beginning, going back to what you said at the beginning, being authentic or trying to be authentic is also stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think everyone truly is authentic. I don't think there is an authentic self as such. That can be found, right?
Mm.
It is also a technology that works in the age of authenticity, and we kind of develop this sense of self, and we think we find our true self. But that is not more real than in sincerity the roles were real. Right, the roles were also taken to be real, very real, and then we lose confidence in themselves, in these roles. We think, no, I can. It's not really, mother is not something that I can really find my individual identity in, right? And so we think that this kind of role orientation, we see how somehow, and of course authenticity is correct in this, we see somehow that it's just like a social construct and so forth. But somehow the inner self is also a social construct. Right? There is no such thing as unique individuality. We become who we are through all kinds of coincidences and that we have no control over. And as you said earlier in the comment, life changes and so forth. And I do not think. I also think that the true self is just as much. It's a constructive illusion. It's a constructive illusion, just as the role is an illusion. And the profile can also be a constructive illusion. So I know what you're saying. And you're right again. Right? People bring up these false profiles, but then they're not good at prophylicity. Then the idea is in prophylicity that you manage, as I call it, to be truly invested in your profile. Mm-hmm. That you build a sense of self by building a profile that you can identify with. And that in your feedback with other people, like in the roles, you also need the feedback of the other people. The roles are always mutual, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? That you are being a good mother and a good daughter and a good father or a good son. You can only be it in relations with others. There's also this feedback mechanism. And that makes sense. And similar in profiles, if you can build a true investment in your profile through productive feedback mechanisms with others, then that it's not authentic, but it's not less valuable. Of course, if you kind of build like fake profiles, that's the problem. But the problem doesn't lie in the technology.
But that,
all three technologies have their problems, and all three technologies give people the opportunity, otherwise they wouldn't work as technologies, to build a sense of self. But all of them at the same time also come with pressures.
This is amazing, and I know Shyla, you'll be up next, but I want to read a few of these comments here because this is fascinating, specifically around since we're in Second Life, we're talking about avatars again, uh, in our way to express ourselves authentically or profilicitly, and then later we'll talk about Georg's term that I love, which is genuine pretending. But Mystic says about her avatar appearance, it depends on the moon if I appear human or like I am today. Camera is on you, Mystic. It has to do with the persona I have created in Second Life, the Jackal, because I love anything with art history, and Egypt was somewhere I wanted to go. I like to play games, and I'm a dog lover, and I can do both in Second Life. So that's, and she refers to herself as a character. So that's quite interesting.
Yes. Yes, and I think that's profilicity, and I like it. It's fine. It's great.
And let's see here. Moon says, it's so funny when I try a new shape in Second Life, it's always skinny, and I find it disturbing because I am not skinny in real life, so I don't feel right because I'm not skinny in real life. I've heard that so many times, Moon. I've done a little documentary about an African American woman who told me it took her 3 years to have a avatar in Second Life that is, full bodied, if you will. She started with, oh my God, here I can be skinny, I can be that, and it took her 3 years to say, what the heck, I have this body in the physical world. I want to have this reflected also in Second Life, and then it was a kind of a breakthrough for her. Mm-hmm.
Yes, why not? But I think both ways are fine.
Shyla, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I'll say one thing first on the chat. Ice Guy wrote over
Oh, Ice Guy
YouTube.
wrote it, yeah.
She wrote, in defining oneself in a profile, imposter syndrome can lurk in the back of the mind, even when you know you are trying to express an authentic you, not just who you want to be seen as, but who you are.
Right. Again, I think this who you are is the question. What we are in different ways. Being can mean very different things. In the language of authenticity, we think what we are is our inner true self. Mm-hmm. That is a new invention. That didn't exist, this notion. Like you were born in a specific role in a specific society, and that was what you truly are, right? Mm-hmm. So you expressing the language that you're using assumes that there is only one way of being truly yourself, and that is an authenticity prejudice. And now I think we're in times where we again changing our way of being. This is philosophy, it's existentialism, right? The mode of being changes because of the different identity technologies. So being who you are and truly being who you are is different depending on which identity technology you use, on which kind of society you live in. And yes, go ahead.
Just to follow up, to me, this kind of throws self-actualization concepts out of the window, like the tip of Maslow's triangle, that we're always kind of developing, and maybe we never do reach that as we're continuing to know our authentic self.
Again, like I don't think a real authentic self doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. It's a creative illusion. It's a productive illusion, but it doesn't exist. Just that's just the way, the model we use, that there is a true self and we are finding it. That's authenticity. That's the technology. But, whatever, study psychology, you will find there is no true self, right? Look at Freud and all experimental psychology. Go to a brain scientist, there is no organ in your brain where the true self is, right? And so the true self it's a conceptual illusion. And many philosophies has also told you that, but that is the core belief in the age of authenticity. And that shift only happens in the 16th century.
I'm so glad, Georg, that I did not make a movie called Our Digital Authentic Selves, but just a movie, Our Digital Selves. And my editor told me, hey, get rid of that word authentic. And I was like, why not? It sounds great. So anyway, now just shifting gears for a sec, because I think this is awesome in your book. And I put up the slide on page 164. My hero, David Foster Wallace, is mentioned, author of Infinite Jest, where I have about 20 different copies in my bookshelf, and my wife is still not filed for a divorce, so good for me. And on page 165, you have a person I despise, Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
Speaking of psychologists, a disgraced practitioner of whatever you call it, craft. So what's up with these two people? What are you illustrating?
Well, again, like I don't really want to talk about David Foster Wallace because, to my great shame, embarrassment, I never read it.
But that's totally fine.
Don't blame me. Paul read him, and we wrote the book together. So I want to talk about Jordan Peterson, who I also never read, by the way, but I saw many of his videos. I watched many of his videos, and even had a short conversation with him on my channel.
What?
And
oh my God,
that wasn't very productive. Anyways, his core concept is sovereign individuality. That's just another word for the authentic individual. Mm-hmm. So his whole kind of self-help thing, and then also his whole kind of political thing, it's kind of the right-wing form, the conservative form of this authenticity.
Right. Be your true self and pursue that, and everything will be fine and dandy, kind of.
Yes, exactly. You have to develop this sovereign individuality. And then somehow society and communism and whatever, they all kind of preventing you from doing that. Mm-hmm. And whatever. So that's his kind of central notion. This sovereign individuality is a variation of this core idea of the authentic individual. He's basically also advocating one of many versions of the pursuit of authenticity.
But the reason why he's so successful, well, one of the reasons is, I mean, you pointed that out, and I really don't want to belabor the point because it's very clear why he's so successful, because the times are so turbulent and we are changing. And what you are offering with Prophelicity is something that he would, I mean, actually, hypothetical, do you think if you would be able to explain to him what Prophelicity is,
well, he was very angry at me because he understood what I was saying, namely that he manifests. He's a great example of the core paradox of authenticity. So authenticity, he's just like hardcore authenticity guy. His whole vocabulary is authentic. But in reality, he's a media star. He's a celebrity. He's created his own profile. So he's a perfect illustration of what I'm trying to say. He's using this outdated vocabulary of authenticity, and even, of course, believes himself in it. This is why he thought my interpretation was the worst, and he was outraged that I basically accused him of inauthenticity. That's what he understood. But I only accuse him of non-authenticity because his whole personality is built through building his profile. And he's building his channel and so forth. He's very good and he's truly invested in his profile, but he doesn't understand it. He still tells himself the lie that he's actually truly authentic, but he's a media personality, and he creates his own self-esteem and his self-confidence through the immense social validation feedback that he gets. He's not talking to his fucking soulmates. He's talking to millions of people, and that's what good for him. But there is this complete paradox and contradiction between what he actually is and the philosophy that he uses, that he's selling.
And now the
And
as the
yeah,
F
that's my point about him.
and now that the F bomb has been dropped, thankfully, I was waiting for it. No, this is awesome. And for the people in the audience who don't know who Jordan Peterson is, you are very lucky. And let's move on to another topic. But thank you, Georg, because that is indeed fascinating. And I had no idea that you actually interacted with him, and that is just really so brilliant, and
Well, he
of course
posted.
Hans was
I
mad
had
at
this
you.
video on him,
Yeah.
and he replied, and he was completely upset, and said this kind of, "This is like the worst thing that anyone ever said about me," and it's
Wow.
he just presents me as if I was just like a fake media personality, but yeah,
Well, you
not
destroyed
fake.
you destroyed his entire
Say,
construction of self. You destroyed his own self, in essence.
yeah.
Um, just want to say hi to and welcome to a few latecomers here. Mud is in the first row, and Mud, you had a mushroom on your head. Just put it back up. It looked really great. We're talking about prophelicity today, and we have a mushroom in the first row, and we have a squirrel in the back row, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Now, I mentioned a term that Georg uses in the book, and the term is, where's my slide? It's genuine pretending, and here is a an excerpt from the book. You and Paul write, rather than finding the identity of oneself and others, including prolific identity, good or bad, or right or wrong, the noble person will understand how and why identity is achieved. She will be critical, but not judgmental. Now, elaborate a little bit on the term genuine pretending and the playful nature of this concept, but also what you mean by being critical and not judgmental, because that's something
These
that
are
I'm
two
trying.
kind of different things.
Yeah.
Let me talk about genuine pretending first. This expression was actually Paul's. He coined that expression. And both Paul and I have this background. We wrote a book together before we wrote You and Your Profile, and the book is called Genuine Pretending, and it's about Taoist philosophy. So this is an idea that comes from our interpretation of Taoist philosophy. And what we mean by this is, and we think that is what Taoism is about, a general existential condition of everyone all the time. Everyone is always genuine pretending. What does this mean? It means like by pretending, and pretending in American English in particular also has the mean like of child playing, right? Just imagine when you were children, and so when you were playing certain games and you played a certain character. Now, the idea is that when we build identity, even in the mode of authenticity, it's basically like a child play that we learn from society, from the books we read, from the movies we see, from how our parents talk to us, from how we talk to our friends. We learn this technology of seeing ourselves and others, let's say, in the guise of an authentic person. That's our pretending. And we do it, and it's not false, right? Because we're not having a true self, so it's not fake. And by pretending and pretending and pretending, we become genuine. We eventually become genuine. And that is and now I gave this example of authenticity, but it's the same in sincerity. In sincerity, we learn to commit to our roles. We grow up and we become more and more sincere. We grow up and we become more and more sincere. We become more and more genuine in the commitment to our roles. And now it's the same with profiles. We build the profiles and we pretend in this non-negative, in this non-judgmental way. And then we build true investment, and then we become genuinely, truly invested in our profiles. Like Jordan Peterson is too. I don't think that's as such is wrong. Only his philosophy is wrong.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't understand it. But he's too, of course, genuinely pretending. So whatever sense of identity we build, if we successfully build a sense of identity, We build it because we began to genuinely pretend, and we're in the mode of genuine pretending. But most people don't understand it and don't acknowledge it, like Jordan Peterson doesn't acknowledge it, right? He thinks, no, I'm just authentic, right? And other people might say, no, I'm just sincere. So the basic insight is that any identity, and also like in the interaction with sorry, I forgot the name earlier, who was talking about coming into her own.
Yeah.
That is yes, you are, and very much you believe in this mode of authenticity, and there's nothing wrong with it. But believe in it. But nevertheless, if you look at it philosophically, I think from critically, that's what I mean with critically, but not judgmental. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
But I can look at it and reflect on it and can see that, yes, you are authentic, but authenticity is just one of many different modes of ways of genuine pretending.
I mean, we should be judgmental when it comes to Jordan Peterson, but that's the last time in this program.
No, because he's so judgmental. No, he's very judgmental. We have to be critical.
We have to fight fire with fire. That's.
No. We have to make it a therapy to him. He thinks he's in bad need of therapy himself.
Now, Back Bro is asking really the question of the evening. So, do we actually have to build our identity?
Yes, we are always building it. Of course, you're not born with it. You can't just, if you don't build it, you have none.
Yep. Now, let's see here. Moon is saying we need to pretend so we fit in. I am pretending to be in a book club and make some half intellectual comments. So fake it until you make it, Moon, I guess.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not really faking it.
Yeah.
Right? It's similar to fake it until you make it, but it's not faking it because we start from zero. We're not faking anything. Mm-hmm. We're learning something. Mm-hmm. It's not faking. It's like learning to play a game. Mm-hmm. If you're learning to play soccer, you're learning to become a good goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. And you're not faking it. You're nothing when you're born. Mm-hmm. And if you don't build yourself, and you can only build yourself by not faking it, by building yourself in this mode, by training yourself, and in the beginning you suck at it. Mm-hmm. You're not good at it. When you start on your journey of being authentic, then you're just not authentic at all. You just, but then you become better and better at it.
Now, we have Shyla, go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of comments in the chat about being dynamic. Like, are we not fluid in this process between these stages?
Yeah, I think that's what Georg is basically suggesting here. Yes. And I mixed up my slides earlier. This is more about the genuine pretending in the sense of what Georg was just expanding on is the playfulness of these different stages, and you go back and forth. And I mean, I love that concept.
Yes, and I mean, that's again what Taoism is about, that you don't over-identify with your identity, right? If you over-identify with your roles and you become obsessed with it, and then that's not good. And the same thing is if you become over-obsessed with your authenticity, you turn into a complete jerk, right? So the idea is, that's the Taoist idea, that you maintain a certain playfulness. Let's say, simply put, not taking yourself too seriously. Acknowledging that it's genuine, that you're always in the mode of genuine pretending anyways, and that everything is fluid, and that everything is changing, and you're very much also, there are so many contingencies, there's so many things that are not in your control, and you're not a sovereign individual.
Damn, I thought, okay, anyways, enough about me. But here's just a little bit. I'm putting the camera for the YouTube folks here on the cork board on the side where I put a little bit of my profile, because a while I had my avatar printed on a piece of cardboard, Georg, and I put it over my head, and I was running around doing interviews hiding behind the cardboard of my avatar. So here's a few pictures of that. I think I was... pretendingly genuine in that instance. And then here on the left, of course, if people are wondering, this is Georg's first foray as Rudimentär into Second Life, and we teleported to SL London, and it was pretty hilarious actually. I think I recorded that, but we just have about 8 minutes left. So I want to briefly talk about your YouTube channel, Carefree Wandering, that people should check out. And now that we know that Jordan Peterson is on there, God damn, I just said I'm not going to mention that name again. Now I did. He so check out that channel. And in regards to this channel, just two questions you have, and this is how I learned about your interview on the 99 zu 1 podcast about morality or moral, the problem
Foolishness.
with morality. Can you briefly, in
Yes.
just a few minutes, tell us what is the problem with morality? Actually, here I see on the slide why morality is dangerous is one of your videos here. Yeah.
Yes, this is also very much rooted in this Chinese philosophy of Taoism, which is my academic background. And basically, the idea is that it's complex.
See, that's why Jordan
Basically,
Peterson
I
has more
approach-
views than you
I can
have.
only approach it from one way. We just have a few minutes. When morality is like a form of thinking and a form of communicating in terms of good and bad, but in a very specific sense, not like good and bad about whatever, good and bad football player or good and bad computer game, video game or whatsoever. You make, as Wittgenstein said, in an absolute sense. And so it's a very strong and harsh judgment in moral terms. And that is actually quite unhealthy. And as a sociologist, Luhmann said, it's basically always a symptom of conflict. And so the idea is that it's actually, we think the world gets better the more moral we become. But I think, and this comes from Taoism, it's actually the opposite. If we manage to be less moralistic in our thoughts and less moralistic in our communication as well, for instance, with our children or towards our parents, I think we can minimize conflict and increase ease, increase playfulness. Again, this is rooted in Taoism. I think, and I usually give these examples, like just to give you one concrete example. For instance, in medicine, right? Traditionally, until not very long ago, and often still today, we look at addicts as people who, from a moral perspective, they are bad people, right? In morally sense, right? And so we ascribe their addiction to their moral failure, basically. But of course, from a medical perspective, that's not helpful at all. So if you actually go like whatever to see whatever detox and so forth, they will not try to cure you morally. They will try to cure you medically and give you health advice. And that's like a transition from a moralistic way of dealing with things to an amoral way of dealing with things, and of switching, again speaking philosophically, the way in which we use the terminology good, bad. It's still, of course, say the doctors there will still say this is bad for you or this is good for you, or if you do this, this is bad, or if you do that, it is good. But it's not in a moral sense. And I guess it's more functional than moralistic. Right? It doesn't really help if you just tell the addict that, oh, you're a very bad person, you have to become a good person. This is just one concrete example. I can give many others for what I mean by for advocating amorality. Another example would be now with the war situation.
War.
Right?
I was just going to go there. War, absolutely.
If you want to do mediation, you need to kind of suspend your moral way of judging others, because otherwise you can never have a peace, and you can never move on from conflict to peace. So reconciliation as well is to an extent based on, let's say, de-escalating the degree of morality that you are applying in both your thinking and in your communication with others. So that is one way of outlining this position. I wrote a book on this as well, The Moral Fool, and some of the videos on the channel are on this.
I need to order a lot of your books, Georg. It's my OCD speaking. It's really fascinating stuff. And now, as you, well, I'll keep it tight. I promise to keep it tight. But now, of course, I have to ask if you feel that social media, especially when you talk about this sort of diplomacy and things like that, this ties into it as well. Social media,
well, yes, I mean,
is making
it's not
things
just
worse. I mean, sorry.
It makes things worse, but that's not just social media. That's media in general. I'm in Belgrade right now. I teach a class on media theory. Right, like really a big problem about media is that media, since the start, mass media, very much use morality, moral language, and they are like promoters of moral thinking and moral communicating, right? Of making people angry and making people creating moral anger, moral outrage, because that is very attractive for whatever, making a newspaper, whatever. If you're CNN, you make people outraged morally about Trump. If you're Fox, you make people morally outraged about Biden, right? And both make people outraged about China and Russia. So that's how media work in news, but also like whatever, you make a movie or you create a video game or whatever, and there's a lot of moralism in there. So moralism and moralistic thinking and feeling is very much promoted through media. So I end the book with a joke, the Moral Fool book, that they should actually put like warnings of morality on these media products, like they put warnings on cigarette packs, right? Putting something, this movie contains a lot of moralism, and therefore it's dangerous for your health, mental health, right? And that is a major problem. So that's not a social media thing. That's a media thing. That's media in general. Of course, also social media, but it has always been a media problem.
Yeah. Well, that's another whole discussion. Again, I'm with you 99%, 99.9%, because I would say in journalism, where I'm coming from, there is also, of course, an incentive structure which has to do with the business model of the particular publication. But since you mentioned the war, I just listened to an interesting interview yesterday with a journalist, and they were talking about the outrage machine of social media that makes it impossible to negotiate and to actually engage in de-escalating the diplomacy.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly my.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. Yes. It's that's 100% my point. Yes.
Hans-Georg Möller.
De-escalation often can only work if you kind of at least tone down the moralism, and you have to try to move from morality to amorality, and that's difficult if you're already very deep into morality. Very difficult.
And I think
last question, Shaila, go.
There's a feeling about morality that ours is the right morality, which I think makes it hard to set aside. And that morality is based very much on perspective, and would it be kind of in that authenticity and then
people have been like very much moralistic and sincerity too.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter which technology. All of them are very vulnerable to being infected with morality.
Well, we need to keep it tight because I need to go back to rereading Infinite Jest, which is apparently has something to do with new sincerity, which I'm really into. I have no idea. But Hans-Georg Möller, together with Paul D'Ambrosio, wrote this fantastic book, You and Your Profile: Identity After Authenticity. And check out Georg's YouTube channel as well, Carefree Wondering. Thank you, Georg, for coming back. This was an amazingly illuminating conversation. So many topics. Just a really, really, really wonderful book. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, and thanks everyone. Sorry if I didn't respond to all the things in the chat, but thanks everyone. Anyways, I greatly appreciate it.
And in closing, if you like this show and if you have Linden dollars in your pocket, put them in the tip jar. The tip jar is right there. This is our tip jar statue. I was a guest on the SL Book Club, and all I got was this dragon statue. Put it in there, and if you like the show or other stuff that I do in the Second Life context, go to Ko-fi.com/Draxtor. You can get a subscription or a one-time donation. Now, next Wednesday, April 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, we have Mike Watson with us, who is a wonderful author, politically very progressive, and now he even started a new press that is even more lefty. So here we see him throwing bombs in Second Life. Revolt Press has started, and he started this with Dan Mello. So that's next Wednesday, right here on the Second Life Book Club. And again, thanks everybody, and goodbye.
Don't it seem strange to you that the sky is always blue? Palm trees neat and green with nothing much to do. And if the sun crawls out of the hazy sky, you wish you'd be somewhere else. You hear it on the radio, thinking about your patio.
Seems strange to you that the sky is always blue. Palm trees neat and green, nothing much to do. And if the sun crawls out of the hazy sky, you wish you'd be somewhere else. You hear it on the radio, thinking about your patio. Let me explain, I'm caught the rain. I'm here to wash you sane. Let me come in and freeze your skin. This time I'm here to stain. Have you ever wondered why concrete's so spotless dry, keeping it together like Lucy in the sky? And if a girl walks up and asks you how you've been, don't you act mysterious, 'cause you're the cutest guy the world has ever seen. Let me explain, I'm caught the rain. I'm here to wash you sane. Let me come in and freeze your skin. This time I'm here to stain. explain. I'm caught the rain. I'm here to wash you sane. Let me come in and freeze your skin. This time I'm here to save.